Welcome to the Lady Berlin Show, where faith meets everyday life. This is the space where biblical truth becomes personal and real stories lies the path to transformation. Through heartfelt conversations, powerful testimonies, and spirit-led insights, we journey together, growing stronger, wiser, and bolder in purpose. Because here, we believe every story matters, and you can always find strength in yours. This is the Lady Berlin Show.
A child tied up, naked, beaten, humiliated, not in secret, but in the open. And around him, adults watched. Some held their phones, others stood by. No one stopped it. This week on the Lady Berlin Show, we ask the hard questions. When does correction becomes cruelty? Who gets to discipline and who doesn't? And what happens when the whole community stays silent? Because discipline without love is not discipline. And silence in the face of abuse is not neutral. It screams. Join us live this Thursday at 8 p.m. The Lady Berlin Show, where we find strength in our stories, even the hard ones.
Good evening to each and every single one of you. Welcome. We welcome you all to this evening, tonight, or this afternoon, depending on which part of the world that we are graced to have your presence from. We greet you, we pray, and we trust that you're doing absolutely well. And, I'm blessed to share the show with my co-host, my handsome co-host, Mr. Albert. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Lady Berlin. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much. God is great, and we thank God for yet another week where we could share His word and share thoughts about realities of life. So, thanks for this an amazing show. To God be the glory,
That's
and thanks for
amazing to
having me
hear.
back
That's
as your
amazing
host.
to hear. And
Mm,
of course, last week, Albert and I, we were here to speak on this subject. And today, we are so blessed
mm.
not to only share the platform with Albert, but to have our platform graced with two amazing individuals, professionals, who are here to add their voice to this viral video that we're talking about and to see how together we can help a challenge that we know is going on in our communities, and especially so in the lives of children all across the world. So last week we asked, is this really discipline? Today, we want to go a little bit further into the story and especially hear from the perspective of these our professionals. What happens to a child after they have experienced such trauma? Code discipline. What does this kind of discipline or treatment do to a child's mind, their body, and their soul? That's what today we want to focus on.
Amen. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored today to welcome two professionals as our guests today, Abena May and JC, who works directly with children, and they're going to tell us their experience and share, give us some more information, advice, because they work directly with children and see the effects of this kind of parenting and how the discipline, up close, and how it affects children in terms of trauma and what we can do to make sure that we are all living in such a wonderful world and being happy parents and enjoying our families.
That's right. So, as Albert said, we're going to have on the platform the lovely Jessie.
Hello.
Thank you
Hello,
for
Jesse.
coming.
Welcome, welcome,
Thank
welcome
you
to the show.
for having
Welcome,
me.
Jesse.
Thank you.
Okay. So we
Uh,
may have
so
some
um,
technical difficulties. So guys, bear with us. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So Jesse, welcome to the Lady Berlin show again. And um, before let's kickstart with a real question, something that would ginger, that would energize us to keep the ball rolling. Mind me asking, Jesse, have you ever seen any long-term changes in kids who were helped early versus those who weren't? In
Yes.
terms of, we're talking about terms of discipline and both good discipline and what we call the extreme ones. Have you seen any changes?
Yes. So as a professional in the educational sector,
Mm,
I have seen a massive difference in terms of students who do get the nurturing and care at home, and also students who you can clearly see that the background, there's a lot of issues and things going on. There's
mm,
massive difference in terms of behavior, in terms of the response and lessons, how they interact with even peers and colleagues and teachers alike. And I've noticed the more you go further into finding out like more information about the child, and you get to discover the background of the child in terms of the home, what the home, life is like, whether the father's at home, whether the mother's at home, you tend to see that this has a massive impact on the child in general. So for example, there are times when, I've seen personally instances where children come from backgrounds where maybe the father's not there, it's just
mhm,
the mother raising the child. And the frustration sometimes that these single parents even go through, they
mm,
need to take it out on the child. So it could be in different format. It could be neglect, it could be emotional abuse, it could be physical abuse, and all of these things. Personally, as an educator, I've seen the drastic impact that it does have on the child's ability to stay focused and even concentrate in lessons, and even the way they behave and how they
mm,
relate to peers. You can clearly see that there is an issue and there is a problem at home. So I think that how we are raising our children in terms of what we're doing when it comes to our understanding of discipline has, different impact on the way that these children behave when they come into the educational sector. So it's really important that as parents we define what we mean by discipline. What
mm,
is the clear line? What are the boundaries that we want to put in place to ensure that yes, we are getting our children to do the right thing, or right, but we are not doing it in such a way that is becoming, something really horrible or something
mm,
really terrible on their mental well-being, their psychological well-being. We really have to draw a clear line. What do we mean by the term discipline? You want the
mm.
child to follow what you want them to do, but I think it comes down to how you discipline the child with love, with care.
Right.
There needs to be clear boundaries, but make sure that whatever the parents do, and it has to have an element of love and compassion, that I know you've done something wrong, but I'm here to guide you. Yes, I
Mm,
am putting certain sanctions in place, but not to destroy the child. And if we don't have that clear line, eventually you will see the impact, especially the negative impact that tends to have on the child. So personally, these are some of the things that I've picked up from children that I've been working with. You can clearly see those who are coming from a background where there's love, there's care, there's compassion, and those who are coming from a background where it's chaotic at home.
so would you from experience say that kids from broken homes are more likely to go through a lot of traumatic events, and it's hard for them to regulate their emotions, especially in school, than those that they are both parents together. However, we've also had experiences. I'm sure Lady Berlin will give us a good example where both parents are in their house, but yes, so the children are going through a lot of abuses at home. How do you cope with this? And also, there are some kids that are very very stubborn. You know, stubborn academic kids. I was the class captain before at one time. How do we manage? I'm laughing at me. It's true. This. How? I mean, what do you think? Is the problem? Do you think it's solely has to do with parents not having time, or because we've also seen some kids from broken homes who are doing very well.
Yeah.
What seems to be the issue here, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it's very interesting you're asking this question because in schools, for instance, there are behavior systems put in place to support the child in terms of teachers managing behavior and all that. And for my personal experience, like you said, some children, no matter what you do, they never change. They
Right.
just getting worse and worse every single time. So from my experience, one thing I have picked up, I always say to my colleagues and people around me is children are not necessarily our clients.
Mm,
If we are able to touch the heart of the child, if you make the child believe that you not just there just to deliver an education, but
Mm.
you're interested
mm,
in the entire well-being on the nature of the child, you are able to capture their hearts. And
wow.
once you are able to capture their heart, then they manage to get on board with you with a journey that you want to take them on. So those I'm just reflecting on an incident that I had with a girl. I had a conversation with a student one time, and in terms of behavior, is really bad across the
Mm,
board.
mhm,
And I just wanted to understand
Mm.
the student. So I was asking a lot of questions. Tell me, like, how do you feel? What makes you feel the way you feel? I
mm,
really want to understand you. So she could tell straight away that I was coming from an angle where it's not just because I've had, your bad behavior and the records that you have, but
mhm.
I'm just curious. I'm just I, I'm
From a place
I'm
of
worried.
genuine care.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
concerned. I want to understand what it
What
is
is
that
going
makes
on?
you feel the way. And from conversation with that people, I could tell a lot of background issues, one stemming from the home,
Mm,
things that she's going through. And interestingly speaking, there are times when students can even tell you, I don't know what it is. I don't want to do what I'm doing, but I just find myself doing what
mm,
I'm doing.
Mm.
right.
There are times when you speak to them, you can tell that you're diving deep into their soul. And
Mm,
I could recall after that conversation, the girl just broke down in tears.
Mm.
And all I had to do was to hold her tight
mm,
and make her know, I understand we have behavior policies. I understand we have things we need to put in place, but I'm connecting to who you are as a
mm,
person. I feel your pain. I feel your frustration. And she just broke down because probably because she thinks maybe nobody has spoken to her the way that I did,
yes.
but she could feel that, oh, she's not there just to judge me for my wrong behavior, but she really wants to understand who I am and support me who I am. So I had to stay with the student the whole for about 20 minutes,
Wow.
gave her water, gave her something to calm herself down, gave her time to just process whatever it is that she was going through, and then I ushered her back into her lesson. So sometimes I think we tend to undermine or underestimate the fact that even though we are there as educators, these children are coming from different backgrounds. There's so
Mm,
much going on with
mm,
them past. Even we as adults, sometimes we're not always in the right frame of mind, but we still have to function. But because we are adults, we have that capacity to, manage the emotions.
Right.
But these children are very young. They don't have what it takes at times to manage these emotions. Some children are very fortunate at a very early age. Parents, bring them up in such a way that they develop resilience. I was very fortunate to be raised by a great man who taught me right from the beginning what it means to be resilient in life. But not everybody gets that, training at home. So they tend to rely on educators. We are more of the parents, we are
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
we are people that they look up to, not just in terms of just teaching necessarily, but they should look up to you and feel safe,
mm,
Right. Feel
because
safe.
the parents are not around, and they spend sometimes 8 to 3, 8 to 3 p.m. is quite a long day at school, and these are the adults that they tend to spend most of the time with. So if we're not nurturing and caring, yes, we are disciplined. I'm not saying we shouldn't discipline the children. Yes, we should, but let them understand that after that discipline, there should be that one powerful thing that in my education system we just call restorative justice, where you get the chance to go and sit with the child and have a conversation to reflect on the actions and behavior of the child. And if these things are done properly, with great compassion, I believe that we will be able to win the children, and get them on board to do whatever we want them to do in order to help us shape their life, in general.
I
Yes.
mean, Jesse, it's really a blessing having you around, and I can't believe there's too many questions. The more you talk, the more you bring in my mind to certain things.
Right.
Now, I'm wondering, at what point does biblical interpretation meet what you call it, community services, in terms of where we from? Spare the rod and spoil the child. It's the Bible, and that has caused a lot of trauma to a lot of people. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but myself, I'll face it. So at what point do you? Because to me, I don't believe in, because of that, what I've been through. I don't believe in hitting a child. I don't believe in rod. I don't believe. I believe in being firm. I believe in talking to them. Putting certain things in place to guide them.
Mm.
I could be wrong. I'm not perfect. But at what point do you meet discipline and love? How do you balance that?
Right.
Good question.
Thank you.
So, from my personal opinion, like as you said, from the biblical point of view, spare the rod, spare the child. People have different interpretations of what they read about, and also people's interpretation of things is also highly influenced by how they themselves were brought up.
Mm,
For instance, somebody from home, probably has experienced dad, saying, "Bring the cane, let me, whip you,"
mhm,
and
mhm,
somebody also from a background where parents always will have to talk and
mhm.
negotiate things with them. So things that we've seen at home influences our interpretation of what we mean by spare the rod or spare the child. So,
Right.
for instance, I've had instances where I've seen parents talking, trying to just get the child to understand what
Mhm,
it is that they're trying to get the child to do. Some even come up with the rewards.
mhm.
They do reward the child. So there's a reward system. If you do this, this is what you're going to get if you do that. But somebody is also going to come very hard.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah.
Because when he was young or when she was young, that's what the parents did
Mhm,
to
Right.
him or her. So the interpretation and the line that we draw when it comes to spare the rod, spare the child, I believe sometimes is impacted by our own life
Trauma. Yeah.
experiences. What we have seen at home as discipline. So sometimes you have two parents. Their ways of discipline will be completely different. I remember my auntie would say, play the good and bad cop.
Mm.
So some children will try to run to mom because they know mom's way of discipline is probably a bit chilled, and
Yeah,
some will
yeah.
run to dad or
Yeah.
because they know dad's way is a bit chilled. Why? Because that's probably what dad has seen at home is very different
Mm,
from
Right.
what mom has seen at home. So this is where if we don't try to meet each other at a middle and have a clear line as to this is how we are going to, we need to define what does it mean to us.
mm.
And like you said, God is love, God is compassion. He's a compassionate God. If in fact, if God should deal with us like according to what we do, in terms of the wrong deeds and all everything that we do, I'm sure some of us would have probably perished by now.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah,
If
but
God
no,
should round up with
yeah,
us and do
yeah, but
what it
no
is,
matter what we
definitely.
That's
go through,
powerful.
yeah,
That's
the
powerful.
love is great.
Yeah.
Love is strong, and I believe that our spirits can feel. Children can feel the they can sense the motive behind the discipline.
That's right.
For
Right.
instance, the video that you showed, for instance, this is not love.
Mm,
This is cruelty.
mhm.
So, what impact, even if the child does something wrong after the discipline, what impact is that going to leave on the child? Is it going to
Right.
be a positive or a negative one? Definitely, it's going to be a negative one.
Mm.
But if somebody has disciplined the child from a love, angle, from a love perspective, where the child can feel, hold on, I actually did something wrong, but
Mm.
mom actually disciplined me with a reason. I understand the reason, and I appreciate the reason why mom disciplined me. You've done this discipline all right, but you still want the heart of the child. This
Right.
child will still be on board with you. So I believe it comes down to the heart.
The heart.
And yeah, it comes down to the heart. What is resonating from the heart? Is it from a place of love, or is from a place of wickedness? So i
Wow.
think i
Just
think we need to have that, that line needs to be drawn. And believe in me,
Mhm.
we can sense, we're human beings, we have instinct, we can feel it. If it's a
Right.
if it's from a place of love, we can feel it. That boy was not feeling it from a place of love. In
Mm.
fact, that
In
video
his head.
really it's really irritating and upset me because I have a son and I
Yes.
can't imagine somebody doing that to a child.
Yeah.
So that
Wow.
wasn't from a place of love. It was from a
That is
place
definitely not from a place of
of
love,
love.
as
Yeah,
Jessie has
yeah.
shared some of her thoughts on that video, but not only that, but on how we should discipline. One of the key things she mentioned there is it should be done from a place of love. Because when it's done from a place of love, there's hardly hurt. Hurt will not be. And I want us to also listen to our second guest, and then we'll come back and hear more from Jesse. So I want to bring in my second guest, Abina, to just also share with us her take on
Hello.
what it is that we're
I,
talking about. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
welcome,
Thank
Abiname.
you. Thank you
You
so much.
heard, Abna, you heard what Jesse was saying. You heard about her talking about disciplining in love, drawing the child in, and the video that has stirred up this conversation, that there was no way that would have come from a place of love. So I want to ask you, within your profession, what are the short and long-term effects of such abusive discipline on a child?
Okay. So I tried to good evening to everyone
Hey.
watching us. So, yeah. I just
Yeah.
wanna appreciate you first of all, Lady Berlin and Mr. Albert for
Thank you.
putting this together to kind of make meaningful impact to everyone that is watching, mostly to parents, and also
Mm,
the main purpose of it is to be a benefit to them and to help them to be able to raise the children the way they ought to raise them in the way that will be pleasing to God. So thank you. And I do not take this opportunity. I do not take it lightly. I really appreciate this
We are more
opportunity
we are
honored to
to
have
honored.
you
join
We are
you
here.
honored
guys.
to have you on the
Thank you.
platform.
Can you hear me well? Do I
Yeah.
have to speak louder, or the way I'm speaking is just
No,
fine?
Perfect.
we can hear you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I just put one or two together just so you'll be able to connect and understand what
Mm,
when I take you from there, then you'll be able to get where we'll be going to. Then it will proper make sense to you.
okay.
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 So when I look at the definition of trauma, okay,
Mm,
it says that trauma is the response that um the lasting emotional response that results from experiencing a distressing or a disturbing event that overwhelms a person's ability to cope. Okay, so in this case, we will link it to that of a child. And we know that in terms of this, when we talk about the trauma, is all stemming from the brain,
mhm,
okay, how the child perceives it and what that trauma really does to the brain. Because when we do understand it, then really we could be able to then join the puzzles in terms of how this would impact on the child, and it will help us make sense of both now and then in the future as well as they grow up.
mm,
So in terms of the brain, we have the brain system. So the brain system is the it's an automatic response. So it help us to give actions to whatever we ought to do.
mhm,
Okay. And then we have the amygdala. The amygdala is like the alarm system of the brain.
mm.
And
Can you repeat that word again? First time hearing it.
amygdala.
Amitalia.
Amygdala, yeah.
Amitalia.
It's that part of the brain that sends alarm.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
So for example, if you see a deer or let's say a tiger coming,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
amygdala is going to send
Okay.
that alarm to
Mm,
the brain
mm.
system to say
There's
um
danger.
Danger, danger,
there's
boss,
danger.
run
So the
away.
alarm will automatically
Find
Right.
go.
somewhere, my boss.
Right.
And then what happens is that then the brain system then will take it off from there
Mhm.
and give the action. So it's that part of the brain that gives us the action. It does the action without you even thinking about it.
Mm.
Right.
So automatically you see that your
Autopilot.
adrenaline will start coming up,
Right.
and then
Mm.
you will run. I'm sure you run more than the way
Usain
you
Bolt.
run on a normal day.
Run for your life.
Exactly. So that kind of informs that action. And there is that part of the brain as well called the prefrontal cortex. Okay,
Yeah.
is that part of the brain that is responsible for things like planning, reflecting, being empathetic, showing emotional, and being able to actually regulate your
Mm.
emotions properly.
Right.
It also helps you in your decision making as well. So that's what is made for. Now, when children experience those distressing events,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that
Yeah.
is overwhelming to their brain, such that they are unable to cope.
Mm.
Okay, it means that they are always when they are always experiencing trauma. What that means is that they are always looking for survival because,
Right.
like I said to you,
Mm-hmm.
when the alarm, the amygdala
The
sends
amygdala.
the alarm, the brain system is constantly looking for survival. How do I survive? If there is
Mm.
danger coming, every time the alarm. So constantly your brain doesn't stop because when you experience it, it's part of the short term. You're not able to sleep because you're in your sleep, you think somebody is coming against,
Right.
or for example, how you're able to reflect the actions is, say you live with a child, okay, a child and a parent, and the parent, drinks alcohol, okay,
Mm.
or a parent has a specific perfume that they use. Do you get what I mean? And they drink alcohol, and the moment they shut the door, so they bang the door, they come up to the child, and the child does, and they begin to abuse the child, okay. So that is how the brain has been able to connect those. So the moment the child, if it's not even in that environment, so for example they go into school, okay, where there are different children,
Mm-hmm.
and there are different sort of smells, there are different sort of sounds, okay, what the brain has been able to do, this is the limbic brain, which keeps, memory. It keeps like the brain library. So
Mm-hmm.
it keeps the events that happens in your brain,
Mm-hmm.
and the actions that you took to make sure that
Right.
you were
Mm.
safe, okay, or the actions that you took. So it stores all those memories. So the
Exactly.
moment the moment for example, in a school, somebody opens the door, so
Mm-hmm.
let's say mom and
Yeah,
dad is not on
yeah.
site. The moment somebody opens the door and
You
the
go
child
back.
hears the bang,
You
okay,
go back to that, right?
in their
Archive.
mind
Mm.
they
Mm.
are in
Mm.
danger, because
Mm.
after that sound came
It's registered
daddy
it
or
as
mommy
this.
physically chastising or abusing me. So when they hear that sound in school, you would think they're all children. It's your teacher. Your teacher is safe, but they heard the sound, which you don't know about the sound. They
Mm.
only
Mm.
know the sound. They are the only ones that can connect or make sense to what the
Wow.
sound means to them. And so they begin to, their mind, even though they're in classroom and they are meant to learn and actually, you know, benefit from the lesson that is going on, their mind is not in the classroom because
Mm.
of that sound. Their brain is in constant mode of survival, needing to survive. I need to be safe. I need to keep safe all the time. So when your brain is constantly doing that because of the trauma that you have experienced, then what that means is that your prefrontal cortex then is, it doesn't work, it doesn't function, it goes offline.
Mm-hmm.
So you are
Yeah.
not able to make decisions. You're not able to be empathetic. You're not able to regulate your emotions properly, because that's what it's meant to do. So when the children
Wow.
receive attuned parenting, okay, where they are nurtured properly, they are brought up in a way that, they've been showed very clear lines and, clear routines, boundaries, they feel safe, their prefrontal cortex is forming properly. So what
Right.
that means is that they'll be able to make good decisions. They'll be able to feel, empathetic. They'll be able to, you know, regulate their emotions, properly, because they have developed that aspect of their brain.
Mm.
So whilst children that have gone through that proper nurturing would have that advantage, children that have experienced trauma because of the need for them to survive constantly, they are not, that part of their brain is offline. So imagine you experienced this trauma as a child, and constantly it was so huge that your brain, mind you, the definition is where the mind of the person is not, the emotions of the person is not able to cope. It's so overwhelming. So you live with it because you're not able to cope with it. So whatever the trauma, for example, the video of that child, it was too traumatic. Okay. So that has had an impact on the child's
Impact on the
brain.
mind. Yes.
Therefore, constantly, sometimes when you're sleeping, you just have to, you know, you just wake up like that because you're panicking to think, oh, danger is coming, somebody is coming to kill me, somebody is coming to beat me or something. So when you're in classroom and somebody is always thinking like that, they don't feel safe, you're not going to be on the same level with that person.
Wow. Oh
So
my goodness. You know what? As
Wow.
you're sharing that and you're educating us on that, I'm thinking, most times when we were growing up, or even in our communities, we tend to, in the class, even in class, you had that classmate that everyone thought that one is just so troublesome. It's like the more they were beaten, the more rebellious they became. And you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned about their frontal thing just shutting down, and just their emotions and their everything just being all over the place. It's almost like when you're saying that, I'm thinking, oh my God, it makes sense. That is why a lot of the children that experience such discipline or abuse, you would think it's supposed to make them calmer and maybe good good people or child, but they tend to be very stubborn and sometimes extremely hard-headed. And this is why. So it's almost like we are getting the adverse effect of what we supposedly our discipline is to kind of bring to these children because of
yes,
how extreme it is.
yes. So it has a very damaging, lasting impact on children. So at the point of, at the point you were 25, I think your brain continuously is developing up until that point
To
and all
the
of that.
age of 25.
Yes.
So,
So
Abner, a quick one. Would you say that people who are very defensive in life, people who, if anything, then you see them even before you tell them they are guilty, they're already justifying it. Do you think it's all based on traumas they've had in their childhood?
so it's sometimes it can be traumas because when somebody's need to somebody always feel the need to be very defensive. It's kind of a place where you want to keep yourself safe. You want to be protecting of your ego and everything.
Mm,
It all boils down. So when we normally look at trauma, we sometimes look at it in the form of like physical chastisement, but trauma comes in different shapes or
Yeah,
forms.
it
Do you
can
get
be
what I mean?
verbal.
You don't have to not only physically chastising directly the child, but even the child, having to observe, domestic abuse between their parents or between, two adults, that is traumatic for the child. So there are many, many instances or many, many things that, children can be exposed to that can cause them trauma. It depends, definitely it will fall under trauma because maybe whenever they've admitted, okay, to doing something wrong or being responsible for something, it's always come with some form of judgment. It's always come with some form of, punishment. So they always feel the need to survive. So I do not have to admit to anything. If I don't, then I don't get punished. If I don't, then
Right.
I don't. So they are
yeah,
never able to take responsibility for anything because they build a defensive wall around them,
All around
which
them.
then
That's
goes on
right.
to impact on, their relationship because
Mm.
in relationship we all have to be responsible. We need to trust one another, and if you've built such walls, those are the impact of the long term,
That was literally my next question that I wanted to ask from what you were saying, in the line of how does this impact the child, their adulthood, in terms of, their intimate relationship with, their partners. How does it impact or affect them even in environments like work, their confidence, their self-esteem? How does this pan out as the child grows up and get and faces the world? How does it show up as dysfunctions that we can pick?
so like I said, when you experience that trauma, it already puts you at that disadvantaged position already. And sometimes we're able to repair, you know, with attuned parenting. So if a child experiences trauma for a long period of time, with time, by the grace of God, sometimes with attuned parenting, when that cycle is broken and the child begins to experience attuned parenting, kindness, and support, and obviously prayers as well, it kind of is able to heal the child.
Mm.
So when it does heal the child, then it becomes, positive for the child. Do you
Mhm.
get what I mean? But
Mhm.
as the child is growing up, if they have experienced this and it's not really, the cycle is not broken, then what that means is that that part of their brain, like I said to you, the prefrontal cortex, it doesn't help them in terms of decision making. It doesn't help them to be empathetic towards others. It doesn't also help them to be, you know, um, reflect and
Mm,
plan well.
Mhm.
So imagine you being in an organization with all this deficit to your to your disadvantage. You're not able to plan properly. You're not able to reflect, and obviously reflection help us on a daily basis. So if
Right.
I go out today and something doesn't work right and I come home, I should be able to reflect to say, okay, what happened? What could I do better in the next? Reflection always makes you better, but the person is not able to do it.
Mhm.
So you will see that they are very destructive,
Right.
in so many ways. You could see so many disorganizations. You could see there is not peace around them because they're already disturbed, because they lack that, ability to be able to make decision, because that decision making brain part
That
for
is
them
taking
is
is
offline. It's
shocking.
not working. Even if it's working, not functioning at the way that it ought to function for everybody. So
mm,
in their relationship, they are going to struggle because
Mm.
they will not be able to show empathy for the other person that they are in a relationship with, whether be it colleague or whoever. They're not able to be nice to you, not because they don't want to be nice to you, but because they are lacking it,
mm,
because they have
They
been
don't have it. They
disadvantaged
don't
to
have
some
that
extent.
skill. They
my
have.
dad always says that you can't give what you don't have.
Right.
Exactly. So you've got to have it before you can be able to give or show it to other people as well. So it has a very lasting on all areas of our life,
Wow.
our relationship with our
Wow.
colleagues, our workplace, relationship out there, anywhere. Significant relationship, say, who you want to, your partner or something like that. It does affect a lot.
You know what? Oh my God. When I start, I understand why I felt so drawn. Like, and we need to have a conversation about this.
Mm,
You're telling me, or I'm hearing you say, the kind of effect or impact, like literally a little child that is abused or that experiences abuse and trauma, how it pans out and affect almost every facet or area of their life when they are adults. I want to ask a question because I've heard you mention this maybe twice, 3 times about attuned parenting. I want you to help us to understand what that truly is. And then also for the the adult or the child that is now an adult that experienced that. Obviously, they can't go back to the place with their parent where the parent can now practice attuned parenting on them. So that child that has already been wounded, how what can that child do to overcome some of these traumas or the effect of these traumas in their archives so that they're not perpetually living in the state of survival. But before you answer that, Abna, let me bring Jesse back on so that we can carry on the conversation.
Yeah, hello.
So
Thanks
Abna,
for
please
the.
serve us. My God, this is a lot.
Okay. I lost my trail of thought, but I'll come back
So
to
the
it.
attune parenting. I want you to break it down for us to understand. Some of us are parents. We probably need to understand that so that we can implement that ongoing. And then for the child that was wounded, their upbringing was so traumatized. That is now an adult because now attune parenting will not help. What are some of the things, the go-to coping mechanisms that the child who's an adult now can apply so that they are not perpetually living in a state of survival, but it can help them to overcome some of these dysfunctions as a result of the trauma they experienced in their childhood?
Right. Thank you. A teen parenting, you can never, mention a teen parenting and leave love out of it. You can't.
Right.
You know,
Jesse
it
said
always
that.
comes from a place of love. Okay.
Love.
It always comes from a place of wanting to make somebody better.
Yeah.
wanting to, wanting with good mind and with good heart, wanting to nurture somebody who is fresh, doesn't know, anything, but I want to guide the person in the right step, in the right way. So it comes with being in tune with the person's emotions, with the child. For example, with a child, for a mother, you would be able to, respond to your child's needs when you're in tune with it. Okay, how your child is, crying out to you for in distress. If you are in tune with the child's emotion, then you'll be able to respond appropriately and soothe the child. Okay, in so many ways, when it comes to, ensuring that the child's needs are met, you're also doing it the right way. You're putting in the right kind of um support, or the right kind of help for that child to be able to receive what they need to be able to grow. So they need they need to be safe. Okay, they need to be nurtured. You need to, be loving towards them. You need to show them love. I don't know how to um I don't know how to describe it in terms of if somebody can come in, but you need to be able to be of sound mind, and create good parenting for this child, for the
Right.
child that you are raising.
Yeah.
And for people who, have not been able to experience that have gone through traumas and are adults now, they're living with it and all of that, there's help out there.
Mm.
Okay, there is help out there, but the first place to, of starting is always, acceptance. Okay, accepting that this has been my experience, accepting and admit that it was not okay for me to have experienced what I experienced. It was not okay because I don't want somebody else to experience what I
Yeah.
experienced. So what do you then do? What you have to do now is to take the effort, take active effort in being able to address those and being able to heal from that and learn new ways of, being able to master, your current self, and ways that can help you to, develop strategies. So there are many ways that you could develop strategies to cope. So when we talk about this impact of, traumas, it leaves them, emotionally distraught. Some
Yeah.
of them rely on drugs, alcohol as a way of coping. Some has different ways of coping. So what you have to then do is, when you come to accepting that this is not okay, I experienced it, it was not okay, I'm struggling with it, but I need help. So you can, look for help with expertise. Okay, there are charity organizations that offer this kind of support to help you in terms of counseling, therapy, to help you to heal from that traumatic experiences and be able to form a new view of the world, a new view of parenting, so that when you have the opportunity to be a parent, you would then start something positive with your child and not subject your child to what you went through.
Wow.
Benjamin, one of our viewer, I've just, projected his comment, and I think it's in line with what you were saying, Abena. And it's always naturally inclined, and adults' behavior mostly hang on what they see their parents do. So we almost, it's like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree
Yeah.
kind of system here. You can only imitate what it is you were exposed to, create that same reality. Even though most times when we experience abuse as children, you grow up thinking, I'm never going to do this to my child. I'm never going to beat my child up like, I was beaten up. And there you go. You become a parent and you find yourself almost repeating the same pattern.
Mm.
And sometimes some of these parents live with so much guilt because they know the effect of that
Yeah.
on their personal life when they were children. And they know how much they have probably promised themselves never to inflict that on their child. And now here they are
Yeah.
repeating the same pattern. And so, do you think, as part of that healing process for that adult, will involve, perhaps if their parents are alive, to have that kind of dialogue, that conversation with them, that, you know what, can we talk about my childhood, my upbringing? There are certain, disciplines that I experienced, or that, that I don't think served me, or this is how I interpreted it, or this is how it has harmed me. To have that dialogue so that they can come to, there can be some kind of reconciliation, before they can begin that healing process. Because again, when you are still in the space of almost like the person or the people that hurt you, it's very difficult for you to almost forgive, move on from that,
Mm,
and
mm.
then receive that healing. So I don't know, you can share maybe yourself, Abner or Jesse. Is it necessary for that adult to have a dialogue with their parent for them to understand how their actions or inactions impacted them, so that they can receive that sorry, for closure, and for the healing to process to begin before they perhaps they go out there to seek other professional support?
Yeah, it's very interesting that you're mentioning going back to parents and trying to reconcile with parents. But the question, as you're talking, the question that I was thinking is, what if the parents are not even there? Whoever abused you or traumatized you, what if they're not even there for you to have that opportunity to reconcile with them? So this is where I think it comes to a place where you need to get deep into matters, like go deep into matters. And from a biblical perspective, like we were saying earlier on, this is where prayer needs to comes in. You need to find yourself in a different place where you have to talk to your father, because if the dad was the one that inflicted the trauma, or the mother, or maybe an auntie or an uncle, and they're not there for them to even say sorry, are you going to find like live the rest of your life going through that trauma? Because interestingly speaking, sometimes those who experience those things even end up doing worse than what was
Yeah,
even done to them. They end up becoming abusive
right.
without even realizing. And I know they know the impact of, in terms of whatever they experience, they know the negative impact that it had on them. But there they find themselves doing the same thing because that is what they've seen, mirrored or done to them. So this is where it comes to a point where I think it goes deeper. It goes deeper, searching your soul, searching, whether you were a child, that moment, that time that you went through that trauma.
Mhm.
It's down to come to that point where I think you need to have a deep conversation. If it's being prayer, is it counseling, going the extra mile to seek the help and the support, because not everybody would get the chance to have those who inflicted those harm on them even alive to even have such conversations with them. So I think it comes down to going an extra mile, seeking help, like what our sister Abina said. Counseling sessions are there, and also some people will take the route of praying. Is really important if you can go down and really speak to God about what you're going through, because I think He's the only one that can touch your soul, your spirit, and your heart to take whatever burden or
Right.
pain you have inflicted on you. Because
Of course.
some people may not come from that spiritual point of view in terms of that background. Some
Right.
people may not have that spiritual sense. Fair enough. If they're not there yet, there are counseling services available that they can reach out to and go to get the support that they need. Because if not, then it becomes something even more serious, and they end up becoming even abusers themselves and
Right.
inflicting more harm and more pain on others because of what they went through. So like our sister Abina said, it needs to be dealt with. You need to come to a place of acceptance, accepting no, you have a problem, and
Mhm.
you need to seek help to
Mhm.
rectify that problem. So yeah,
So
that's
for a parent that has come to the realization that their method of discipline is becoming emotionally or physically abusive, what should they do?
apologize.
First.
Call the child, speak to the child. It's okay. We need to learn to say, as an educator, my children appreciate this so much when sometimes I just get around and say sorry. Oh, guys, I was supposed to do sorry. They do feel the genuine, the place where you're coming from. They feel is genuine. You apologize to the child.
Right.
You explain, and when you do that as a parent, you're even modeling what it means to go wrong
Mm.
and reflect on your actions and rectify those actions. You are
If
actually modeling that. Yeah,
You
and the
see,
children.
Abuna, Jesse is saying, but I want to play devil's advocate here
Mm,
because when we look at, I mean, the story stemmed from Ghana, Africa,
yeah,
and we know as part of our African culture, it's almost difficult for an adult, a parent in that sense, to say sorry to their child. In
Mm,
our culture, we believe that when a child and an adult is dealing, even if the adult is wrong,
yeah.
The child
they are
is wrong.
still right.
Mhm.
And so, Abena, on the back of what Jesse is saying, we know that doesn't almost exist in our culture. So, what other means can, sometimes our parents, our moms, they are sorry, but they can't open their mouth to say sorry. You come and they've cooked your favorite food, trying to show you that they are sorry, but they can't actually utter the word. What other? Jesse is saying, start off with sorry. What other things can be done?
I think, sometimes I wanted to shed something a
Yes,
little
please
on
feel
what
free. Yeah, yes, please
what
feel
what
free.
you asked before, then I'll come
Mhm.
to this one.
Okay.
Because, um Jesse was saying, what if the person is not there? But actually, the person is there. But they said, "Listen, I did the right thing. You are stubborn as you were. How could I? How you didn't listen to anything? The only way was, and that's me.
Listen,
You see, yes, that they are justified in terms of however they went about it.
really.
They are
So,
justified.
if it
It's
caused
very
me
true.
trauma and I'm waiting for an apology to be able to move on, or set an example or make a difference, then I'm sorry, I'm stuck. Okay.
Hmm.
So I think that some of them, sometimes our parents are there, but listen, you at that time, I think I did what I did.
Yeah. They
You said
believe
I want me,
everything is
but
right.
I
They
Yes.
know
were
that
right.
what they did, okay, maybe help them to kind of train me the way they wanted, but it's left an impact. But do I want my child to, be brought up the way that I was brought up?
Hmm.
What has the way that I was brought
100%.
up had?
Hmm.
What impact has it
Wait.
had on me?
Yeah.
That's right.
What good has it taken away from me?
Hmm.
Okay, putting aside how better it may have made me, because maybe at the time that's all that we ever knew. That's
Right.
all that they ever knew in terms of being able to discipline children. But
Hmm.
actually, I'm not in their time.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm here now, and I know something different.
Right.
I do not want my children to be placed at that disadvantaged position I was because of the way I was brought up.
Hmm.
I'm raising my children in a
Hmm.
different dispensation.
Ooh, that's a
And I do not want
powerful.
them to lack the things that I lack as a result of the impact of the way that I was brought up.
Right.
So I have to know that this, and sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes the impact is so much that you're not able to even think outside the box in terms of
mm,
wanting to make the difference. You think this is the only way that, you get things right with the child. So let me do that because I'll get
Hmm.
it right. It
Right.
might not be right.
Hmm.
It would actually be an abuse and cause more impact on the child. And then in future, you start comparing other children to your children, but
Hmm.
you didn't. You didn't do the research. You didn't seek the face
so
of
a
God
quick
to
one,
guide you in
please. So
how you raise
how
them.
does how does parents deal with stubborn kids? Because trust me, even in this country, I've seen some 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and the way they will talk to you, the way if you're not careful, they will handle you is much more than your own father will handle you. Um, how do you deal with kids like that?
Yeah, I think from all this discussion, one of the things that we also need to consider is the context in
Mm,
which we're coming from.
Hmm.
An African environment or an African home is very different from this part of the world. So
Right.
I
right.
think it all comes down to context as well.
Mm,
The environment where you're finding, because definitely discipline in Africa is a whole different language
Ooh.
altogether to somebody,
yeah, I
yeah,
love that
in
whole
the
different language.
yes, in the Western part. So I think it comes down to context. Like, if, for instance, in this part of the world, there are certain things that if you find yourself doing, if you're not careful, the child will even get you into trouble.
Right.
Right.
So some parents, even their hands are tied, even though they want to implement maybe the African discipline or something, their hands are tied because of what the children have been exposed to,
Hmm.
out there in terms
Mm,
of, dealing with anything that they've deemed, not acceptable. So I think we need to be also very careful in terms of the context that we are trying to, relate this to. Parents need to see the environment they find themselves in. But it's a very sometimes things can get really tricky, especially in this part of the world where you have kids hearing other children saying, "Oh, if your mom does this, oh, call this person, do this, contact this person." So I think it comes down to, once again, like we've been saying, a place of love. Find a way to connect with the children.
Right.
It's very difficult because, one, you're doing what you need to do as a parent, but they go out there and still mingle with other people
Mm.
and pick up all kinds of behavior. That does not mean you're not doing what you need to do. So then it becomes a very broad thing. As a parent, you need to go the extra mile, monitoring, finding out who their friends are, what are the kids doing, mingle. You need to get involved with the child.
Mm.
Get
Mm.
involved
The
with the
entire
child.
journey. Yeah, you need to be involved. And that does not mean they're not going to get it wrong. They will definitely get it wrong at times. But I think constantly not giving up on them, getting more involved in everything they do, every step of the way. I think, from my personal experience and how I was raised, I think that you will be able to get the children on board with you, and, you know,
Wow.
whatever you want to get them to do. From my personal experience, I've
Mhm.
seen that works. Get involved with the entire well-being of the child, physically, emotionally, educationally, spiritually, whatever, mentally, everything. Get
Right.
involved with the
And,
child.
as Jesse said,
Yeah.
parents to get involved. And I think it's one of the things that, specifically in our African community, we tend to lack a lot,
Mm.
where the child and the parents are living totally different life, because the parents are so busy working, trying to make ends meet or to provide for their child. And then the child is being raised up by social media, television, and all these things. And in most cases, in time past, I've worked with children, mentoring and coaching them. And I realized a lot of the parents, they didn't have a clue who their children were once they shut the door and they went out there. But when we are having a great time, time just happens to want to just run. And it's literally like 9 o'clock. And we have so much we wanted to, share to serve all of us. But Abena, can you just round everything up and just give us your final word on the one thing, because a lot of parents are living in guilt. One, a lot of parents are doing their best that they can. A lot of parents have not been provided with the skill set
Mhm.
that you need for parenting, this attuned parenting, because it was never introduced to them when they were children.
Mhm.
Just to run everything up, this whole conversation, what is the one thing you want a parent that is listening to, that is feeling guilty because they can either see the damage already, or they're doing that and they want to stop but they don't know how? What is the one thing you want them to take away from this conversation, Abena?
I think the one thing that I would like, um, parents to take away is that, children, I always say, are plain book, that we write into them. Okay. And
Mm.
I know that, we love our children. I would want to say that we all love our children.
Yes.
Okay. And we want the best for them. And I will encourage everybody to come, from a place of love, to
Mm.
be able to impact, love to them, speak the language of love to them in whatever they are doing. I think that, I know, and I take on board what Jesse said in terms of, in this, side of the world, things are different. But I also, what everybody needs to take away, all parents, is that regardless of wherever you are in the world, physical chastisement, that's violent behaviors towards children, it's not a form of discipline. It's an abuse
Mm.
towards children, and should be frowned on and should not be accepted any way, shape, or form. It should be frowned on. Bystanders standing and, actually taking pictures and not intervening to, save the life of children, and actually, suggest ways of supporting this parent. I think that, they need to
Yeah.
actually think again and do things better to shape our community, because what we want to do is to effect change wherever that we go, regardless of where we are. And I hope that today's, program, that they'll be able to take away that, we need to come from a place of love and the fear of God as parent to effect, godly principles in or instill godly principles in our children and help them to be better. Thank you.
Wow, God
Wow.
bless you. That's amazing.
Wow. That is.
Wow.
Ooh. I just feel like a part two should probably be crazy. I don't know, but let's see what happens. But I hope. Wow, this has been very heavy on me. But I hope that everyone that took the time to join us to listen, that there's something, at least one thing that you have heard. If you're a parent and you are listening, attune parenting. Parenting in love, disciplining in love, because like Abuna said, every parent loves their children, and everything that they're doing out there is because of the love that they have for their children and wanting to prove and be the best and do the best by their children. The actions doesn't always replicate that, but again, we are all here to learn. We're not here to blame anybody, to judge
Mm,
anyone, to point finger at anybody. No, we can always unlearn and relearn in order for us to do better, so
yeah.
that we are not causing these damages to these innocent lives who are the future of tomorrow. And then when we do see the results of our actions on them in tomorrow, we don't understand. We all have a responsibility, not just as parents, not just as professionals, but also as community. In the video that circulated, there were people, a whole community surrounding this child that was being traumatized, and no one, not a single person, came up to the defense of the child and said, "No, I'm not going to let you guys continue with this." And we all have a responsibility. It takes a community to raise up a child, and I hope that anybody that's listening to us, that this evening's live stream has really served you. We've learned something, and we trust God to see if we should come back, because I feel like there's so much more
Yeah.
we can decompose
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
really serve people, and time will just not allow us to be able to do that. And so I want to round it up or pass it on to Albert to just close us in as we, but thank you everyone for tuning in, and keep spreading the word. Keep spreading the word, because we are really here to help build a safer environment and community for everyone. So Albert.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys. So thank you, Lady Berlin. Abna, may God bless you for coming. Jesse, it's a lovely scene. I mean, having you here.
Thanks for having us.
So knowledgeable, coming from, a place of not just experience, but from the field itself. And it's been a blessing. And to be fair with you, Lady Berlin, I think we need to give these two ladies a different time for them to come, and we just keep quiet and allow them to just impact us and impact us.
Yeah.
This is very, very important. I
Yeah.
mean, I was shook to the bone the way they kind of broke things down for us from both Abname and Jesse. And Benjamin Kafui, we think we might also need you here, because last week you was with us and your contributions is so amazing. We would definitely also need you here. You guys are so amazing. God bless you guys all for coming in here. Abname, Jesse, God richly bless you. I can't thank you enough. And I'm going to talk to my madam here, Lady Berlin. We need you guys here. We need you. Even
Yeah.
if it's one at a time or both of you, we still need you, because this is very, very important. The Ghanaian community, the African community in general, we are lacking this, because some of these abusive stories it cuts across the whole of West Africa. You hear them from Nigerians, you hear them from Ghanaians, everywhere. And we are all, at one point, we all went through such things with our parents, and we're still dealing with it. So it's important having you two ladies here. And God bless you so much. And I can thank you now for your time and your patience for coming over to share this amazing thought with us. One thing I can take is I'm Italian.
Amygdala.
I'm Italian. It reminds me so much of watching
Amygdala.
the
Amygdala.
family. It reminds me so much of familiar. So I'll forever remember, the word, and it's so much
Yeah.
educative. And I hope the viewers also enjoy themselves. And God bless you.
Albert, just to add to what you were just saying, it's important for every parent to realize that it is a responsibility of the adults to safeguard the children. We
Thank you.
should take safeguarding very serious and protect and safeguard the children.
Yes,
Like
ma'am.
that is the
Thank you.
And
responsibility.
safeguarding is everybody's responsibility,
Everybody's,
irrespective
yeah,
of who
adults,
you are.
everybody, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody's responsibility. Yeah.
I just feel like this conversation, this platform is not even
You
big
know,
enough for this
you know.
conversation. Like parents, like we need to know, we need to be equipped
Mm.
with what we need to be able to do right by our children, because
Yeah.
a lot of the children, they get damaged before they even get to face the world. They are
Yeah.
totally damaged, especially so when it's coming from an African community, because our parents don't know how to show us affection. Everything is hard labor, hardcore,
Mm.
hard discipline. Everything is hard, hard, hard. And so we don't have any emotional connection with, whether with our spouses and then obviously to our children. So it's bigger than this platform, and we can only do the best that we can here to serve and trust that, people that tune in will share it, so that a parent that really need to hear something from this to use to make things better can. And of course, make sure you're joining us at our next conversation, because again, this platform, Finding Strength in Your Story, we are all about how we can impact our life, how we can challenge ourselves to do better and be better versions of ourselves each day. So thank you, my guest Abner, May, and also our lovely Jessie. Thank you,
Thank
Albert.
you
Thank
for
you to
having me.
Thank
everyone.
you.
God bless you all. Have a great rest of the week. And God willing, we'll regroup here again next time or next week, right here on the Lady Berlin Show, Finding Strength in Your Story. Have a great evening, all. Thank you.
Thank you. God
Thank you.
bless.
Thank you for joining us today on the Lady Berlin Show. May the story shared stir your heart, renew your faith, and remind you that God is still writing yours. Until next time, keep growing, keep believing, and keep finding strength in your story.